So first of all, to start out, why Posey and Gibson County? Why were these counties that you decided would be a good fit for a wind farm?
You know, when you look at the conceptualization of trying to figure out which project areas work, you know, to create the economics you need, you look for three things. You know, first is infrastructure. You know, do you have the transmission capability, the transmission capacity to get your energy to the grid to provide to consumers? That's one thing Posey and Gibson County both have. Transmission lines in Gibson County and specifically transmission lines going through Posey County as well. The second thing is wind speeds in the area. So this isn't as high of a wind speed area as, say, northern Indiana, but with the advances in technology that wind energy has come to, roughly 70% cheaper in wind costs over the course of the last 5 years, lower wind speed areas are more economical. So that's part of the reason we're down here as well. And then thirdly, you know, interested landowners. So, you know, without landowners and farmers who believe that this is a good thing, you know, for their farming practices and for the future of their farms, for their families, you don't really have a project area to work in. So we've had those three things down here, and it's progressed really well since.
It's interesting that you touched on the lower wind speed thing. That is something that, as I've covered these meetings, that people have brought up. It's concerns that the lower the wind speed, because southern Indiana is lower than northern Indiana, that I guess the higher these turbines are going to have to be. Is there any fact to that, or can you speak to that?
So typically, higher megawatt-sized turbines, megawatt capacity turbines, output better energy production in lower wind speed areas. You don't know that until you have the final wind speed data to assess those hourly wind speeds and determine which turbine model will ultimately give you the best efficiency rating for the area. So those are things we're working through right now and progressing with, and hope to get to those details here in the future years.
Okay, so that's kind of in the next step here.
Yep.
Okay, so speaking of next steps, where do those projects, and if you could go one by one, where did Posey's project stand and where does Gibson County's project stand?
So we've been working, you know, me specifically, been working on this project over the course of the last 13, 15 months. You know, first stage is land acquisition as far as which landowners and farmers want to be a part of the project. Our central, what we call our Gibson Central project, let's say closer to, you know, Owensville, Princeton area, just to give us, you know, a brief area, Patoka Township. We roughly have, you know, landowners consisting of approximately 10,000 acres for that project that have chosen to sign on and be a part of it, work through details in all aspects of their farming aspects. But secondly, Posey and Gibson County, that's more specifically Poseyville, Cynthiana area, kind of north going into Gibson County, north of Wasmer Road areas is where we've been targeting, you know, landowners. You know, those are the higher wind speed areas. And to date, we have about 15,000 acres a part of the project.
Okay. And that was actually my next question, was how many people do you think you have committed? And you just mentioned the number for the Posey County one, the other project. Do you have a number on that one?
The Gibson Central project, about 10,000 acres. Posey, Gibson County, probably about 15,000 to date, and continuing, you know, prospecting.
Does that break down into property owner numbers that you might have available, or is that something you could give us?
Property owner numbers, I mean, they range because, you know, one farm could have 5 to 7 different landowners, different people that need, you know, signatures. So it would be hard to say at this point. I would say in total, roughly maybe about 400 signatures worth of landowners and farmers. You know, we'll have those numbers as the project progresses.
Okay. Now, I know you're in the planning phase, as we have just discussed, but what is the general timeline for this entire project, big picture?
So in the future, you know, so say over the course of the next year or two, what we'll be doing is assessing wind speeds in the area to gather more hourly wind speed data, you know, to match those turbine outputs. Additionally, starting environmental studies, you know, bird and bat studies, you know, Federal Aviation Administration studies, Department of Natural Resources in Indiana, you know, floodplain area studies, you know, all those things that play into account to assess the viability of the project. That'll happen over the course of the next year. We expect to start putting together a layout, you know, here in the next six months to a year, as far as where things are going, you know, which areas will be impacted and so forth. So in the future, we expect construction to start probably April, May of 2021 and last through October of 2021, and hopefully have all turbines commissioned by the end of 2021.
So those turbines can go up within a year. I mean, it sounds like it's a matter of months.
Yeah, so once you start, it's a pretty strict construction schedule. So you have different aspects, 2 different phases of it, but you can get them up from April to October, only take 1 crop year out of production, and have them all commissioned by the end of the year.
Now, I know off camera we were talking about minimum and maximum rotational speed, and I know that's more of a numerical thing. Does that mean that right now specifics on turbine models and sizes aren't available since you're still doing all these studies?
Yep, so in turn, we are looking at turbine procurement, turbines that will be available that we can, purchase for 2021 projects. So that's ongoing as well. Once we have a final turbine, we'll obviously be relaying that to the landowners and the farmers, which will impact, potential project areas and where we would place, potential windmills.
Okay. How many turbines are you thinking of, do you see in the long term for these areas? I know there was rumor that 81 was going to be in Posey County. I mean, do you have those numbers available?
So, best assumption, best case right now, with how the project's progressing, I expect for our Gibson Central project to be anywhere from 50 to 60 wind turbines. Would be my best guess at this time. With Gibson West, what we're calling Gibson West, North Posey area, we can expect somewhere in the same range, 50 to 70 wind turbines. I would say maybe 80% of that would be in Posey County and 20% of that would be in Gibson County. But again, as final projects, develop, we get more closer to those final details.
Now, one of the, I think, tougher questions that people have been asking at this meeting is the concern that, okay, these turbines are going in their backyards and everything, but how much of that power, if any of it's coming back to power locally? Is there any of that power that's coming back locally?
So when you put energy to the transmission grid, I like to tell landowners it's like a drop of water in a bucket. You don't exactly know where the drop of water goes, but it just goes everywhere. It disperses where it's needed. It's the same case with this regards. It'll go where demand's needed in the area. So it could go to Toyota, it could go to Evansville, it could go somewhere in the area to where the energy is needed. So it's hard to say exactly where energy is used.
Is some of that energy leaving the area as well? Is it fair to say that while some of it could stay, some of it will be leaving?
So energy is regulated, by the Midwest Independent System Operator. So, they ultimately regulate, where energy is dispersed, as well as potential power purchase agreements that we will enter into for the project. A lot of wind energy projects enter into what you call power purchase agreements with third parties, whether it be a Google, a Facebook, an Amazon, someone that wants to potentially purchase those renewable energy credits to power their facilities. So those are things that we'll be working on in the future as well, seeing if there is a specific off-taker that would be willing to purchase the energy from the project.
Okay. Again, another one of those hot button issues that I know this kind of a keyword is the shadow flicker issue. And I know that you hear a lot about that at these meetings. As far as these planned farms go, do you expect to see shadow flicker? And how much do you think that can actually affect people's, way of living? Yeah,
so shadow flicker is a thing that's brought up all the time with wind energy projects, but proper placement of wind turbines, as well as minimization and mitigation on where you place specifically these wind turbines, in recognition to where residences are, is very specific to E.ON standards and what we abide by. So over the course of this project, we'll do numerous studies to mitigate and minimize these impacts. Proper turbine locations as well as exact turbine models will come into play. So those are the things we're working to address the public here over the course of the next couple months. Specifically, having potential experts come down and talk about the specific concerns from residents. So we expect to have a public informational meeting here within the next 2 or 3 months to address those.
Okay.
I'm gonna close this one real quick.
Yeah, no problem.
Didn't mess anything up.
Okay.
Don't want to.
Obviously, another thing that people are concerned about is noise. Do you have any data or any feedback concerning that?
Yeah, so, the first thing I like to, tell people is to, go up and take a look at them yourselves and understand, what sound comes from them, what impact do you think it has, specifically just in your own personal opinion. Secondly, they talk about the decibel level of a wind turbine. I like to say it's similar to the sound of a refrigerator, fan coming on, that hum you hear. But those are additional studies that we do over the course of the next coming months to assess those. Same thing with experts coming down to address those specific concerns from residents that you keep hearing.
I know that your setback distance is 1,250 feet, is that correct?
So that's what's stated in our lease. Yeah.
Okay. I know recently in Posey County, residents opposed the half-mile limit and they wanted more. Is that something that E.ON is willing to talk with these residents about, or is this something that they're willing to entertain?
So, in our lease, it states that we have a minimum of 1,250 feet from any residence. We intend to push those as far as possible in specific areas where, when our final project layout comes to fruition. I've seen ordinances, and setback requirements anywhere from 1,000 feet to 1,500 feet. We will assess those situations as they come upon in the near future.
I know, so you're basically, 1,250, that's what's in your lease, but, nothing is set in stone right now, correct?
That's correct. And until you have a final, project area where which landowners want to be a part of it, it's hard to get those specifics.
And I know the ones in Benton County are actually 1,000 and not 1,250, so you're proposing an even farther setback than what we did a special report on, which I just found interesting. Another concern property owners have is their property value. They're concerned about their property values going down, maybe not necessarily if their turbines are on their property, but if they're nearby someone and they feel like they don't have a say in their property value going down. Is there any truth to this? Is this a pattern that maybe you've seen in other projects?
Yeah, so property values is brought up in every project location. How I like to relay it to landowners is there's been numerous studies done by the federal agencies, by state agencies, by local agencies about those impacted property values. Specifically a University of Berkeley study done in 2013 where they assessed 50,000 homes over 27 counties and found no impact to property values. So I like to point residents and people with concern, to those specific studies that are peer-reviewed and non-biased.
On the flip side, say these turbines were installed and for some reason this project were to fail. People who have signed on to leases, is there any protection in place to protect their property value if for some reason this project does not work?
So in our lease, it stipulates that we allocate funds to decommission the project at the 20th year of its lifespan. So by decommissioning, I say we take out the roads if the landowners do not want to keep them. We decommission the foundations 4.5 feet below the surface. We terminate collection lines, and we take out the turbine model to restore the land to pre-existing conditions. So that is the stipulations that landowners have, in their lease, that we allocate those funds into escrow year 20 of the lifespan.
If something were to happen before you hit the 20-year mark, is that kind of still in place if the project were to fail prior to that?
So specific, counties have certain requirements as far as, if we are, able to post a bond at an earlier date. So we will work through those issues or, address those concerns as they come up in the final project area.
What about the concerns that, people are worried about their infrastructure being kind of destroyed as these things are built? So we're talking, damage to roads, other types of things like that. Is this a concern that you've run across before?
Yeah, so all projects, when you bring in, these large manufacturing components, there are certain road upgrades we have to make to actually get components to site, whether it be widening a radius of a turn or paving a road. These are all things that are done through the construction timeline and final transportation plan of the project. So this transportation plan will come at a further date once we know, again, finalized project area and finalized locations. And we expect to enter into a road maintenance agreement with the county, something the county would require us to do to sign and submit saying we will repair these roads that we impact. Very similar things that we've done for all of our projects.
And E.ON withdrew a permit from Posey County recently with plans to rewrite and resubmit. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct.
Okay, what was the reasoning behind that?
So the permit was for a meteorological tower to basically assess wind speeds. Or, it's maybe a 200-foot tower. It's tubular. It's got some guy wires to assess wind speeds over the course of the year, average hourly wind speeds. But with availability of different equipment, we realized we could get better resolutions and better estimates of what the wind speeds are if we use what we call a LiDAR system. It's different from a meteorological tower, as it's more of a maybe a small refrigerator box. It's easily accessible and it's less intrusive to the farmer. So we wanted to resubmit that application with this new LiDAR system information and make sure our application is full before continuing on.
Now, was that application, and this is again more from my records, was that application for the entire project, or was it just for that component of the project?
It was just for that component of the project. So with this project, we have a different amount of LiDAR systems that we've had up over the course of the year, more in Gibson County, as well as we have some meteorological towers, one specific up in Gibson Central. So it helps us extrapolate, the whole project area and what the wind speeds are, throughout the whole scheme of it. So. And
the reason I ask you that is, when that permit got pulled, obviously it started rumors that the entire project had been pulled. So I just wanted to, give you a chance to set that record straight.
Yeah, so we anticipated something like that happening, and my larger concern was that changing the application at the last minute would show people that we were not being transparent. So we wanted to submit a full application of the complete inputs of the new information to every resident and give them time, adequate response, and adequate interest in the project.
So I did a story with a family that they're full-time caretakers of 2 adult sons. And this family acknowledges that their special case, they know that, shadow flicker, anything like that, may not affect your average adult, but they're concerned because they know it will affect their children, and they're concerned that they may have to lose their home, and they feel like they just didn't have a say in it when their neighbor signed on. I know it's probably few and far between, but is there any special approach or protocol that E.ON uses to address special circumstances like theirs?
So we will specifically, we have concern over all residences who have issues with the project and meeting those concerns over the course of this lifetime, course of the development lifetime. So with that, I've actually met with that family, in person. I have a personal connection, with them, as I have a brother with a disability as well, and my mother built a home for him. So I expect to be able, over the course of these next 2 or 3 months, to meet those concerns of that family along with other families that have the same concerns.
So this is kind of are you looking to possibly pursue an ongoing dialogue with this family or families like them?
Exactly. All concerns from residents in the area are very specific, to E.ON, very specific to the project. Everyone has different issues that we hope to work through and bring the right information to fruition.
And I don't know if you would have this readily available, but if E.ON has encountered situations like this before, and like I said, the family recognizes, it is few and far between, are there any solutions that E.ON has used before, maybe to adjust to their living or lifestyle needs? Like maybe that particular turbine gets set back, versus the other ones. Is that something that you would entertain, or?
We will be looking into, all solutions to this issue. This is, kind of new. It's been a month, and we expect to fully meet these concerns over the course of the year. What'll be helpful in progressing that dialogue, with that family to meet their issues, is finalizing, which landowners want to be a part of it, finalizing the project area, and determining, in specific, where they fit into the whole entire project as a whole.
Okay. I think the last concern that I would like to address is that of farmers that might be, on the fence about signing one of these leases, but they're concerned about the effect of these turbines on their farmland and how viable that soil will be after, this is removed 20 years down the road. Is there anything that you can say to address those concerns?
Well, with projects, that have gone up, around the country in the Midwest and specific, I've seen firsthand how these assets on this farm can increase a farmer's, livelihood. With crop prices, being very volatile, you never know what they're going to be. It's a very good diversification for a farmer. It takes up roughly a half an acre of land. And I work very specifically into meeting those needs of each farmer and landowner that sign on to these projects, whether it is their concerns on where access roads go or where collection lines go, and ultimately where the turbine is to, maybe find a lower yield ground that, works better for them. So those are issues that we address, over the course of land acquisition, and we'll continue to address.
And then one concern that I've had voiced to me from private citizens is that they felt that E.ON representatives had not communicated with them right off the bat. They felt like, the project kind of moved into their area almost silently, and they wanted to be a bigger part of the project. What would your response to that be?
So in specific, from a developer standpoint, there are hundreds of landowners and farmers. When you want to meet with one landowner, you might meet with them 10 times to try to grab everybody that has input on that farm. So there's only been one, me in specific, as far as one other contract land agent we've been using to reach out to all farmers. It's not an easy issue to grab them all. So until you know which farmers and landowners specifically want to be a part of the project, you don't know which residences would potentially be closest to the project area. So my goal was always to finalize the project area and then reach out to the public, reach out to the residents that would potentially be closest to the project area. So that's our intention in the future.
So I know you're going to this meeting tonight. Is this kind of something that you intend to continue doing both with, Poco Wind and Gibson County, their groups to kind of encourage transparency?
Yes, in specific. I think it's very important that, we at E.ON, me in specific, are there to listen to the concerns of the public. We want to know where they're getting their information from, what the details of the information are there aspects that are being missed in portraying that information. So it's my goal and it's E.ON's goal to be more of the part of the community as the project progresses, and different things that come up, whether it be county fairs, different donation events we can contribute to, as well as specifically meeting these public residents' concerns.
And once this project moves forward, if I'm not correct, people working with this project will actually move here to become parts of these communities. Is that correct?
Yeah, so, in this project, during construction, there'll be 400 to 600 construction workers that'll, be a part of this community, that'll contribute to this community, use local materials, local labor as much as possible. In the end, permanent jobs, they'll create about 30 permanent jobs. We're estimating for the operation and maintenance of these wind turbines, and we try to hire locally as much as possible for those as well. So these are people that will live in the area, raise their families in the area, and be a part of the community.
You said 30 jobs. Is that 30 per project, so are we looking at 60, or is that 30 over both?
Approximately 15 turbine tech jobs per project. It could be as high as 20, but that's about the estimation.
And lastly, if there's another family in the area that might be dealing with a similar situation, like the family that you sat down with yesterday, would you be willing to speak with them?
Absolutely. I'd be willing to speak to anyone that is potentially in our project area. If they have concerns, feel free to reach out to me in any way they find. E.ON's got a website, very, very much available that, they'll get a hold of me. And I expect to eventually, as this project progresses, meet most, if not all, of the people, potentially impacted by this project, and specifically meet their concerns.
And I know you kind of addressed this in the first question that I asked, but just to kind of wrap everything up, what is the very next step here?
The next steps are environmental studies that we have to get through, assessing wind speeds in the area as well, gathering that data to meet which turbine components, come out. And in order to make this project most economically feasible project, these studies are things that need to be done. Ultimately, these projects will bring in, in Gibson Central, roughly $59 million in tax revenue. In Gibson West, Posey, roughly $29 million. In specific, $19 million will go to North Gibson High School, roughly $11 million to South Gibson High School, and roughly $15 million to North Posey High School. So those are the things, the environmental studies, the utility interconnect processes, the land acquisition phase, finalizing project area, the things we'll be working on in order to bring these economic benefits to this community, and ultimately be a good partner for the area.
That actually reminded me of something. I know at one of these groups they presented a concern that this type of project could decrease enrollment in local schools. But you're in fact saying, this project is going to give tax money back to the schools. Have you seen any lowered enrollment rates in projects that you guys have done before this?
I am not personally. I know there was one resident in the area that proposed some type of information like that. We specifically had people look into that information, and it showed that enrollment was already decreasing before the wind farm even came to fruition. So, in project areas, in rural communities, you hear all the time how the economic benefits, the prosperity it brings to the schools, the tax revenues, create stronger schools and in turn create stronger communities. So we intend to be a part of that in this project area.
Is there anything that you would like to add that I haven't touched on, or you would like people to know about this project?
Yeah, so, this is an ongoing process. Transparency is key to these projects. We intend to be a partner in the community, again, by bringing in, economic benefits as far as that property tax revenue, as far as local jobs, as far as those construction jobs and economic benefits those will bring, along with, renewable energy such as this, that can power roughly 400,000 to 600,000 homes a year. So we intend to meet the concerns of the public. We will continue to do our best to have outreach to every single one and expect a public outreach meeting here to happen in the coming months where we can bring down experts and meet those issues, head on. So.
Is there somewhere specifically that individuals can reach out to either get a hold of you or, a representative from the company if they do have concerns, maybe if they can't make one of those meetings or something like that?
So I would specifically address to look at our website, E.ON. If you send in something, they'll get a hold of me. I'm available depending, when I'm in the area. It always varies, but I intend to reach out to E.ON. You can look on their website, and I intend to fully, be available whenever they are accessible as well.